Hi everyone, I am Dr. David Perrodin and welcome to the Week 2 Fireside Chat for Educational Leadership 655, Pupil Services and Nondiscrimination for the week of Monday, January 20th through Sunday, January 26th. So a week 1 recap. Everybody did an incredible job. You posted your biographies on time. You're very active with posting to the discussion threads, so keep it up. That's what you want to see for the remainder of this class. So many of you noted in your IDEA counts, your special education counts, an increase in students with OHI, Other Health Impaired. So that percentage was climbing, right? Also, you were noting that the number of students identified as having a disability and receiving services under Section 504, that was also climbing. So these are significant, right? It's a reflection of the increased medical profile of students presenting with one or more, or we would call it comorbid, medical diagnoses. So when I talk about special education director, pupil services director, it's almost like another slash that goes medical director kind of for the school, because we are seeing this in the numbers. So we have to ask the question, our professional development, is it aligned to our student needs, how our students are presenting? Are we having more students with anxiety, depression, different mental health areas? Are we matching professional development to that? And also, we need to advocate for funding, right? Because 504 isn't funded the same as IDEA. A matter of fact, Section 504 is largely an unfunded mandate in schools. So it makes it really tough for schools to serve students under 504 when there isn't some kind of flow through dollars also coming along to serve those students. So our week 2 overview, 504, IDEA, ADA. So we're going to touch on those. You're going to begin your allergy case study for Bruce. So you're all assigned to groups now. Make contacts with your other group members and decide your division of labor, how you want to do your project and start in. It's not due for a while, but you want to get rolling on it as soon as you can. So a few things for week 2, our overview. I want you to contemplate self-awareness. So are you an introspector? Are you a seeker? Are you aware? Or are you a pleaser? So typically, when you start out as a special education pupil services director, you're kind of a seeker. You're trying to find knowledge from people, trying to figure out the role. Eventually you move into aware and hopefully get to a point where you're introspective. And this is a hard point to get to, and it's a hard point to stay with because so many things happen so fast in the role that you don't have an opportunity to sit back and to look at your own decision making, the discretion that you used in making decisions. It can be really frustrating for administrators. I interviewed several, and when we get to the discussion of, are you introspective? Are you analyzing your own decision making? They'll say, you know what, I kind of did early in my career, or I did at the start of the school year, but 4 things happened yesterday, 5 things happened today, and I'm not having time to analyze how I'm making decisions. So we need to keep that at the forefront, especially in pupil services, because it is so fast moving. The second part I want to talk about is the IEP, the student's IEP never trumps ADA, okay? So here's what I mean. You cannot write legally in an IEP, for example, that this student will not participate in fire drills or intruder drills or whatever. For whatever reason, you cannot exempt students from participating in school safety drills. So that's something we have to be very aware of is in the pecking order, ADA is above IDEA. Just to keep that in mind, because IEP teams start to get really creative sometimes. And, we have sections on IEPs where we can make test accommodations, but people then go a little further with that. Part of it is, there isn't great guidance on IEPs. It is meant to be a document that informs the services for one specific child, but we've got to be aware that we can't take that IEP and go above ADA. There's a pecking order. So when you look at Chapter 7, Addendum to the ADA and Emergency Shelters, which is posted in this week, just understand that takes priority over IDEA, especially right now when we talk about hyper-realistic drills, a lot of intruder drills, students with disabilities. There are more schools leaning toward exempting students with disabilities from drills, and we can't do that. And it's not right. I mean, if we need to practice with students, whether they experience something in the school setting or in their home. What if there's a fire? What if there's a blackout? What if their neighborhood does go on a lockdown because of some type of intruder situation? We just need to pay attention to that. All right. So, Section 504. Well, it's nebulous. I've never gone to two districts where they have the same interpretation or even similar forms for 504. But it's an area that's growing because of medical diagnoses. Check with your attorney, check with your state organizations just to make sure that your forms are current, that they're up to date, and also figure out who's managing these forms. Is it done locally by a school psychologist that serves a building? Is it a counselor? It's a different set of paperwork. It's a different set of procedures. So just need to be aware of that. It makes sense in this case to work with, an attorney or to, work with some contract agency to make sure that your 504 paperwork is current. Legal requirements of service animals and comfort animals. Have that discussion now with your administrative team. Look through your policies, because there are a lot of things also that tend to get written into IEPs, especially with comfort animals. I worked with a few districts in the state this fall who were trying to negotiate that, because, it seemed, like an appropriate, a good thing to do, but was it really warranted, or was it something that didn't fall in the category of service animal, didn't really fall in the category of comfort animal? Just have those identified. The last thing you want to do is figure this out when, tomorrow a service animal or a comfort animal is starting in your school. You want to have those set of procedures down in advance, so you understand and with staff how you're going to respond to that. Not to put a barrier up, no, but just that you understand, because people say, well, what if the animal needs to go to the bathroom, or what if the animal bites someone, or what if a student is allergic to a dog or something like that? So just have those things identified. There are enough policies, enough districts that are, have service animals or comfort animals where you can look and find those policies, those examples, talk to people. So talking about allergies. So Allergy Awareness Month, ironically, is May, right? So that doesn't make a lot of sense, though, in a school setting, because it's the end of the year. So why would you have Allergy Awareness Month at the end of the year, not at the beginning of the year? So I did a podcast on that. So, if you go into my podcast, basically it's something, Allergy Awareness Month should be in fall, but you need to be aware of allergy education for your staff. I think it makes sense to make like October your Allergy Awareness Month in schools. And then, you can hit on it again in May, but you want to be careful when you're creating policies. So if you say this is a 100% peanut-free school, no peanuts in the school, no peanut products, residue, whatever. And then the question is, how are you going to enforce that? You have hundreds, thousands of people coming in and out of the school. If a student has a reaction because there was some residue on a bleachers from a basketball game the night before, what if a student brought in a sandwich and forgot about this, didn't say anything to someone. And so then you find where you need to change and become allergy aware, because really that's the most you can do, unless you're actually going to check every student, every product that comes in and out of your building all of the time. But districts that have gone peanut free, who did that in the past, suddenly find themselves having a lot of issues, because parents will say, this was supposed to be a peanut free school. That's what it says on the sign. That's what it says in your policy. And then they'll say, well, we're going to change the policy. And no, you're not. And they'll rally. So you want to make sure you don't go down that path initially of peanut free, latex free, and clay free, the milk free, milk allergy. So many things can get on this list that it just becomes prohibitive to the ability to function that in that school setting. Everything has to be individually looked at. You can do as many precautions as you can to mitigate the risk of allergies and cross-contamination, but just be very aware of that when you get into policy, because it's hard to back or impossible to back some of those things up. I actually knew a district that ended up hiring additional custodial staff to wipe down door handles, tables, things like this, to stay compliant with their policy. It's not like they have the money to do that, so that money has to come from somewhere else. Medical records. So we get medical records all the time. I think, get the release, have the physician or outside provider provide those to you. Now, if a parent provides it to you, you still have to consider it, right? But I've had parents provide me documents which they've edited. So there'll be sections gone. And, then it's kind of looking like a freedom of information request for Area 51, right? It's hard to make sense of that, but you still have to consider it as an IEP team. So just make sure everybody's familiar, that needs to be, your counselors, your school psychologists, your building principals, with release of information. And, if you haven't had your release of information looked at, have your attorney look at it, do a training on it. Here's what we need to fill out. Here's how we answer questions if parents have it. Do a sample, right? Fill out a couple samples of these things and then make them available on your drive, for staff and your internal drive, so they can look and say, oh, I don't use this form a lot, and I want to pull up a couple sample. Oh yeah, this is where this goes, and here, and whatever. So, and also when a student leaves, we don't send the records to the next district. We have to, the medical records either need to be destroyed or they need to be provided to the parent, and the parent then has the ability to give them to the next district. But then, the next district should, if you're the receiving district on that side, you should authentically get those reports from the medical providers. So, at least you'd have an idea if the parent, for example, gave these to you. Okay, these are reports, so I'm going to work with the parent. Get releases, try to get updated reports. So overtly instruct students about bullying, harassment, reporting threats of harm to self or harm to others. We talked about the handbook, right? You worked with your handbooks, you put them in the readability. You probably found a lot of them at 12th grade level. That happens all the time, happened to handbooks that I put together. But we need to be overtly, we can't just say, here's the handbook, read the handbook. We need our counselors to be working with students, teaching them what is bullying, what is not bullying, what is harassment, examples of harassment, how to report it. Are they to go to an adult? Do you have reporting systems in your district, like some kind of app, some kind of online system? What is it? So you want to be very explicit. Have your staff, again, assemble the materials that they're going to use for training. Keep a copy of that, when they've trained, the date for the training, who they've trained, if it's in the homerooms or whatever, because these are questions that come up in litigation. As an expert witness, I can tell you these questions come up. How did you train or how did your students become aware of what is bullying, what isn't bullying, and how to report bullying? Well, the counselors cover that. Okay, when? And what are the materials? Well, yeah, you want to make sure you can say when. You want to have the materials, a copy of the materials that the counselors used. You want to make sure there's always a question section on there. So the counselors say, students were asked questions or asked to give their own examples so they can demonstrate learning. Very important. So one more thing with allergies. So there's something called RAST, R-A-S-T scores or RAST scores. But just to know, when someone says, it's a mild allergy to, latex or peanuts or whatever it is, it doesn't mean that the next time it won't be a severe allergy. So we always have to be ready. We always have to be prepared too with EpiPens. Just needs to be ubiquitous in schools. We just need to have these around. The playground folks have them, need to be in the lunchroom, office. They could be in the classrooms. You could put them in with your defibrillator boxes and things like that. But EpiPens, yeah, definitely we need to have those in schools. So you might say, yeah, that costs a lot of money. If you go to your insurance carrier, whoever's providing insurance for your school, they'll often pick up the tab and give those to you gratis. Otherwise, if you contact, Lions Club, community clubs, they'll typically fund those. The thing with an EpiPen is they last a year, right? So then when you're done, here's a little tip. When you're done, have your school nurse train staff on how to use an EpiPen, because it's a little intimidating, right? That auto injector feature at first. You can get like a grapefruit and then you can stick it with the EpiPen. I've known nurses who have done that for trainings for the expired ones, right? Because then staff actually get that tactile experience of using an EpiPen. Just do not eat the grapefruit afterwards. This week's discussion questions. The first one, it's an angry parent. And that's all about process, right? So when you're responding to that, think about what's the first step. Who are the people you need to contact? What's really been stated in this message by the parent? Because the word bullying is in there. Well, bullying, instantly brings up a discussion of Act 309, bullying. It could be a local violation. Also, some cities have ordinances about bullying. So just an awareness. The second one is IEP at a glance. So as you go through that, how people become aware of IEPs, a lot of districts will do IEP at a glance, which has its place, but it doesn't replace the IEP. And we need to be aware that we can't just, put in somebody's mailbox, here are the, 8 students in your classroom who have IEPs, and, any questions, get a hold of me. Okay. We've got to be, there needs to be an opportunity for discussion that you sit down and hear, hopefully teachers at the IEP meeting, right? But we can't take shortcuts on making people aware of an IEP and the content of the IEP. So the IEP at a glance has its place, but it shouldn't be the only way that teachers are informed about the content of a student's IEP. So think about how that works in your district. Also think, has there been a teacher who said, I'm not going to follow the IEP? Like everybody, I already make accommodations in my room, so I'm not going to do this. Again, those types of things happen. So how do you respond, keep that relationship with the teacher, but also, indicate, hey, this is a non-negotiable. The IEP team, determined this, and this is what needs to happen. How does administration get involved in that? So there might be some experiences you've had. I know I've had those experiences. One thing about advocacy. So right now, we have Senate Bill 53. So you can look it up. It's in the state of Wisconsin. Wisconsin legislator, again, Senate Bill 53. So what this would do is basically it would allow schools to modify the exits of classrooms. So basically, you could modify the locking mechanisms. So let me read a couple points here, and I'll just tell you why I believe this is important for all of you working in the field of student services. Okay, Wisconsin Department of Safety and Professional Service issued a bulletin stating that it is not permissible to use security devices that are separate from the door hardware, causing the door to require more than one releasing operation to unlatch. A bill has been since proposed in the Wisconsin State Legislature, Senate Bill 53, which would circumvent the adopted codes and the department's response in order to allow classroom barricade devices. So an example of this would be that you have the door lock, and then either you press on the door to open it or you push the handle down, okay? And then there would be a second step where you might have to press a button on the side, and then by pressing that button, it would release like a electromagnet, and then the door could open. So this two-step, that has proven deadly in some situations where that's been in place. I think with students with disabilities, doing something like that is ridiculous, right? Because we're almost creating an escape room type environment if we pass Senate Bill 53. We want standardization on a few things, and one of those would be how to exit a room, right? So, we have 421 districts in Wisconsin, 2,200 schools, roughly 100,000 classrooms. We absolutely need that standardized for all students, all staff, everybody, but especially students with disabilities. The 13% of our students, younger students, we don't, we should not expect them to have to do multiple steps, which are not innate to how they leave their house, how they leave any other setting. And, are you going to have something on the wall that they have to read? Press this button or hold it for so many seconds. I mean, it doesn't make sense. I personally am going to advocate against Senate Bill 53 as a special education director. I think this is not in the best interest at all of students with disabilities. I think it introduces several possibilities for dangerous situations. And really, we should be looking at just fidelity of having locks on doors and having staff keep doors in a default lock position. But I want to make you aware of this because as a special education director, pupil services director, your voice makes a difference. When you go to Madison, if you write letters, if you email your legislators, if you testify, it makes a difference. Now, I'm not telling you whether to oppose this or not oppose this. You will make that decision if you review the bill. I've told you my position on it. But advocacy on matters like this are very important, and the legislators do listen. All right, shout-outs for week 1. Discussion question 1. Tamara, I apologize if I am not pronouncing your name correctly. Let me know. Tamara wrote that her district has a group of parents and families of students with disabilities that meet with the director of special education to discuss inclusiveness, specifically best practices related to inclusive schooling. So my response to that is that's awesome, right? That is a qualitative method. So interviewing, discussion, student focus groups, those are all qualitative, where you're asking people, you're giving them open-ended discussions that they can come forward with. But what do we really do in school most of the time? What we do is quantitative. We give surveys after survey after survey. We test people. So we try to come up with numbers, right? That's what it's kind of all about. Now, what you've described, that's a qualitative process. It's very much needed. It's incredibly powerful. So thank you so much for mentioning that. And as a director, you want to balance that. You want to have the interviews with people. You want to be able to quote them in things that you're doing. Like, talked about our allergy program. I talked with 3 parents of students with allergies. Here's a few things that they said, whether it's, how they become aware of what the school is doing, questions they might have, whatever it is. But when you do that, it personalizes it as has a rich context. We just inundate people with surveys. We just throw numbers around. We don't spend the time on the qualitative side. So Tamara, thank you so much for doing that. Week 1, DQ1, Christopher, you took a sample of your student handbook. You determined it was at the 12th grade level. So yeah, I've been there. My handbooks, and I learned. So I think the part to take away from that is sit down with students, and a group of 4 to 6 students, maybe you have some students with disabilities, an English language learner, a student who's new to the district, just a variety of students, and have them read through the handbook, these sections, harassment, bullying, discrimination, threats, how to report a threat, and then ask them, what does this mean to you? Describe this back to me, or teach this back to me like I'm just starting here as a new teacher or something like that. And if they can't do it, then the handbook's not working, right? Then the handbook actually becomes a passive discrimination type tool, because we know we've created something that students aren't accessing. They're not able to access because it's a register too high. So this is an area I encourage you to look at when you do your Pupil Services Nondiscrimination 5-year DPI report. And it's great to put in as a narrative, right? To say, we looked at our handbooks, we had students review the sections in handbooks. We found our readability levels were high. So we worked with students. We brought it down to more descriptive language. We had students then look at it and help inform us on the way to describe things. We feel it, we've increased the readability of our handbook for all of our students, including students with disabilities. So that's really big stuff. Now, again, as an expert witness, if I'm brought into a case, I will always ask the attorney, under discovery to get me all of the handbooks in the schools. And I'll typically find that the handbooks, the student handbooks, and also the staff handbooks, but specifically the student handbooks, are not accessible by the students. Too much jargon. It's just a copy and paste of policy. And, that can be really troubling for a district in a legal case if it's bullying, harassment, something to that effect that falls into the pupil services realm. When we have a handbook that is, just too written at innately high levels. So, all right, moving on. Gregory, for week 1, thoughts and reflections. You wrote, being able to distinguish in a meaningful way between inclusion and mainstreaming has been incredibly useful as we work to communicate the vision and mission behind this work. So absolutely right. We want to define our terms, and we want to make sure, we have like 4 or 5 terms that we're not defining like a dictionary, right? We got 4 or 5 terms. These are things too, like what is growth? What is attainment? So, not a few years ago, like 20 years ago, I participated in Wisconsin State Transition Initiative workshops. I was the transition representative from CISA 5, and it was John Trefan and Wally Byrne did these trainings, these workshops on transition. And they spent a lot of time on making sure that we knew the core language around transition. For example, what is a graduate? What is an exeter? What is an age out? I mean, all of these terms just kind of get conflated. So no matter what you're doing, and Pupil Services is so rich with terms, right? We want to make sure we spend time on our core terms that we're going to be using all the time in board presentations and talking with each other and documenting, and to make sure, are you thinking what I'm thinking when we talk about, whatever? Because that just isn't there most of the time. Discussion question 2. Kelsey, you wrote about your school special education PTA, and Jennifer made a post after that where she said, it's like a fine dance of encouraging parent involvement and working to keep the organization and school's relationship positive. So, as I read that, so you have a special education parent-teacher association. So at the onset of developing that, there needs to be this clear discussion of here's your role. Here's what you can make decisions on. Here's where you can't make decisions. Administration needs to make decisions. And you talked about summer school. They talk about summer school. And the moment I'm reading that, I'm thinking, discussion about summer school could quickly get to a discussion about extended school year. And that could quickly go to a discussion of, why don't we have extended school year for all students with disabilities, right? Why don't we do that? Well, then, of course, that's an individualized education plan team meeting would make that determination. But we want to make sure that we have administration, that's participating with these groups, that they're not operating, independently, because the thing is, they just don't quite understand where their boundaries exist unless they're identified by administration, right? And this isn't a negative take on PTAs or any other organizations, but they don't know. Are we supposed to make this decision? Do the administrators want us to make this decision and then just bring it forward and they'll adopt it? Or what is it? So that needs to be very clear from administration. You might think it's clear, but remember, administrators turn over at a pretty high rate. Superintendents every 2-3 years, principals about every 3 years. So, if this group is around a little bit and there's some stability on it, they might go through a few different administrators in their tenure. So it's one of these things too of people will accept and take more discretion and make more decisions if there's no pushback from somebody else. So we just want to be very aware and very much articulate up front, like here's your role as a special education PTA. Here's how you'll inform, work with administration, and then also administration has final say in things. So Linda, discussion question 2, you wrote, instead of reminding the group that we could not discuss a student in an open meeting, which I warned them about the legal issues, the parish priest, let them intimidate the principal and priest for 45 minutes. So, wow. This is an excellent point, though, that advisory groups need to be explicitly educated from the start about confidentiality. Unless it's a closed session, everything that's expressed becomes an open an open record, right? And also, when we start to have these types of discussions where we start to talk about individual students in a public forum, those tend to devolve to those students instead of our students. So it becomes an us versus them. And it can go down some really divisive paths really quick, especially, if a district is having to make budget cuts. And everything is put out for budget cuts, and people don't think budget cuts are equitable. And there's certain services that are mandated by the laws and certain services that aren't. It just can get really tricky. But what you've described though, as an administrator and being present at board meetings, making sure that nobody starts to go down a path of identifiable confidential information being shared at a meeting. Again, we might think this is just something that's taken for granted. This rarely would happen, but remember, school boards turn over frequently. And anybody can run for school board, and they don't need to have any experience with school, previously to that. So they come on a school board, and a topic comes up, and they might start having opinions. They might be making statements that they can't make. Okay. So that's where, as a special education director, I think when new board members are hired, and usually new board members go through like a training, and, the superintendent does a thorough job of educating the board. But as a special education director, pupil services director, I think it also serves you well to sit down with the board in some kind of professional development. It could be a 30-minute meeting of, just professional development of saying, we address confidentiality in IEPs, like if board members get called, my child has an IEP and whatever, just so they understand even what that is, how, harassment investigations, things like that. I'm talking like 30 minutes, like just to make them aware that, here's some very common things in our school. So they need to make sure that they're not engaging in conversations of confidentiality, especially in open forums. And Shannon, for discussion question 2, you wrote about your TVI advisory group, or Teachers of the Visually Impaired, and the frustration with the state because the state no longer has a TVI program. So it's been eliminated, but yet we have this strong demand for TVIs everywhere in Wisconsin, everywhere nationwide, right? So I have a friend who's a TVI, and she's concerned that without a strong TVI advisory group, that the state might alter TVI licenses to reduce the strain on demand. So this could be, I'm just saying this is her concern. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but her concern is, what if there's an idea to say we're going to combine licensure? So you could have a special ed, K-12 special ed, TVI, and orientation mobility license all in one. And, that way you'd be able to maybe serve more students in a district. If you're a district that doesn't have enough to provide you with a full-time TVI caseload, maybe they could provide you with a special education caseload. So then a smaller district feasibly could have you full-time, serving part of your time is serving, students with disabilities, special education, non-TVI, other would be TVI. So just these type of things require strong advocacy, which I know the TVI advisory group does. And it is, it's a pressure cooker for superintendents, right? Because superintendents get contacted by parents, say, why don't we have TVI services for my child, our students? Why don't we have that? Like this is in the IEP, you're not meeting it. They're like, we're posting everywhere. We're contacting our CISAs, our state organizations, and so the superintendents, just want some resolution to this. So, if there was a proposal that came out saying, here's how we're going to ease this, and maybe it's changing up the licensure or something like that. Again, not saying this is going to happen, but that's where the advisory group, as you indicated, would, step forward and advocate and say, listen, we need to make sure that we don't compromise the training of TVIs just to meet the need, right? That we don't relax the training, the requirements of TVI. So definitely advocacy. So, which is a strong part of being, in special education pupil services. All right, at 3 pages of notes, I wanted to cover a lot. Thank you so much, and on to week 2.